Grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and the repentant alike. I am Chief Sophia of the Americana Band of Indians, and in this video, we're going to discuss one of our patron saints on this land, whose feast day was August the 27th. This is Saint Phanourios, Saint Phanourios, the great martyr, and he is the finder of the laws. So one thing we know for a fact, the people on this land have been lost. We are the quote unquote lost tribes, if you use that terminology. But in general, we are the lost people because there's all kinds of people on this land. Black, white, orange, pink, green, yellow. We're already all on this land. And we have been recategorized under the hallmarks of black and white. And basically, when these individuals came from Europe, they pretended like we were never here. Like there was no one here when they got here. But we know for a fact this was a thriving culture. The very first quote unquote world war took place here, as we learned when we were discussing the Song of Roland. So we know that there were people from Florida, people from the Kingdom of Florida, people from the Kingdom of California, Germans, Spaniards, all kinds of people had come here to fight this battle against these heathens with Roland. So we know that there was people like there was before their recollection of history. We were already here with our own thriving history, both black and white, right? So we need Saint Phanourios to come in and to help us find what has been lost. So I'm going to read his story, and then we're going to talk about how we, as you come into the pieces of yourself, the pieces of your history, the pieces of whatever it is that you're finding out that you did not know, this saint asks a request. He has a request, and his request is that you prepare for him cornbread. Now, they call it something else, those people over there who are not American, and who are former members of the Khazarian Khagnate. Okay, that's how we're going to refer to them. They have a complicated recipe which makes something that doesn't make any sense. But as soon as I saw the recipe, I thought cornbread. Like, obviously this is supposed to be cornbread because they want you to mix orange juice with baking soda, and I'm like, but why wouldn't you just make some cornbread? Like, specifically I'm thinking sweet potato cornbread, but we'll get into that. So let's go ahead and read his story. Try to close the other stuff I got open. All right, so an overview of the life and veneration of Saint Phanourios. Okay, the flexibility of the Orthodox Church in its selection of saints is made evident in the canonization of a saint about whom next to nothing is known. This is just like Saint Philomena, okay? What little there is remains shrouded in mystery, all of which makes this particular saint the most unique, and certainly in the annals of Christendom, his name is known, at least. But even if it were not, the same reverence could be accorded him because, like the unknown soldier at whose grave a wreath is placed annually, he lies in honored glory known but to God. The saint's name, however, is known. It happens to be Phanourios, okay? Which, though may not be a household word, is much better remembered by the faithful of Orthodoxy and the Eastern sector of Christianity than a good many more obscure saints whose biographies have been written in detail, who fill mere pages in church literature, than the mysterious Phanourios. Phanourios has been revered as a saint. His feast day has been celebrated for more than 500 years, considerably longer than the lesser saints, and his name invoked in prayer, quite possibly as often as some of the major saints. This is all the more remarkable when it is considered that it is not known when or where he was born. what he did in his lifetime, in what manner he served the Lord, or what he did for his fellow man. But there is a mute testimony that he died the death of a martyr after being horribly tortured, and in addition to mystery, there is an aura of divine manifestation in the man whom nobody knows. A fortuitous discovery by nomadic pagans, not Christians, brought to light this unheralded saint when a roving band of Arabs who pillaged the island of Rhodes uncovered amid the ruins of an ancient church a group of icons, among other artifacts. All of the icons were in a state of decay or near ruin, with the exception of one, which appeared new and as fresh as though it had been painted the day before. This icon was discarded by the Arabs, who failed to attach any importance to it. At a safe distance, a group of monks hiding in the rubble observed this phenomenon and waited patiently until the Arabs had left the scene, whereupon they rushed to reclaim this fantastic image in its remarkable state of preservation. They beheld a clearly outlined face of a saint with the name inscribed in what happened to be fresh lettering that spelled out Phanourios, and on the closer examination fell on their knees at what they saw. Drawn about the saint were 12 distinct frames, in which each of Phanourios was shown enduring a cruel form of torture in a realism that suggested the artist must have been witness to the atrocity. They rushed back to see if any of the other icons were in as perfect a state, but although they were all the same basic design, size, and shape, all of them were quite ancient and quite indistinct. After careful scrutiny, it was finally concluded that this icon of Phanourios had indeed been one of a group that had been exhumed after untold centuries, and that its freshness was a divine manifestation of the complete saintliness of this man, about whom they were now determined to learn more. But in years of research, scanning the archives of the centuries and questioning the leading authorities of the day, yielding nothing, and no more was known about Phanourios than the day which the icon was snatched from the ruins of that ancient Greek church. The torture scenes of the icon provided no clues, an examination of which showed Phanourios being stoned, on the rack, being slashed, behind the bars, standing before a judge, tied to a frame, being burned with candles, tied to a post, thrown to wild animals, crushed by a boulder, holding hot coals, and a demon hovering against the background of the flames. All of these horrors conveyed that Phanourios was apparently indestructible instrument of God that in itself was sufficient evidence of his sainthood. Archbishop Milos of Rhodes concluded that the unblemished icon itself was testimony enough to prove that Phanourios was a man of divine grace, and he petitioned the patriarch to convene a synod which officially proclaimed Phanourios a saint, after which there was erected in the saint's memory a cathedral which enshrined the holy icon. Phanourios, lost for centuries in the ruins of a church, became the patron saint of things lost. To this day, his name is invoked when prayers are asked for recovery of lost items. He is commemorated on August the 27th, the day his icon was found. Okay, this is the folk cult. Wait a minute now, listen. The folk cult of Saint Phanourios in Greece and Cyprus, and its relationship with the international tale, type 804. It has the whole study, but I'm just going to read this. This paper discusses, from a historical perspective, the basic elements of the folk cult of Saint Phanourios in Greek and Cyprus, namely the custom of preparing Phanoropita, literally Phanourios pie. Okay, that's what we're going to call it. Instead of cornbread, we're going to call it Phanourios pie. And they're going to be like, what are you guys talking about? And anyway, you'll see. I got a good recipe, which is connected with the belief that one can find something lost or obtain good luck in general, and the oral narratives associated with Saint Phanourios and his mother, which seem to constitute the Greek adaptation of the international folktale type 804. The investigation is based on recently collected materials as well as the manuscript of the Public Folklore Archive. So obviously I'll be digging into that later, right? But we want to get to his mom because it's really important. Is Saint Phanourios really Saint George? And is his identification a misreading of the inscription of the icon, such as that of Saint Salsa of Typasa and Saint Philomena? Saint Philomena. Could it be that the word Phanourios is just a surname of George that expresses a certain quality or story, much like as was done to the ancient Greek gods or the Virgin Mary? In my opinion, this just adds to the fascinating mystery that we should all celebrate, though no definite opinion can really be sure either way. More can be read in the study above and also here. That would be insane. In his 1948 book, Ezekiel Velendiotis writes of a conflict between the Holy Synod of Greece and certain pious faithful in Pakrati, Athens, 1947. Metropolitan Methodios of Syros decided to dedicate a chapel to St. Phanourios. In response to this, the Holy Synod decided to issue an encyclical that St. Phanourios does not exist and that houses of worship should not be dedicated to him. As a result of this encyclical, Metropolitan Meletios of Messina changed his mind about dedicating the chapel to the holy monastery of Valendias of the Oak to St. Phanourios and instead dedicated to St. George. However, in Pakrati, the people insisted in honoring the memory of St. Phanourios, and hence his memory is still honored there to his day. What about the relics of St. Phanourios in Cyprus? It seems like this folk custom, not authorized by the church, in reality, his bones, blah, blah, blah. So they don't know where, they don't know what they're talking about. I want to talk about the thing with his mom. So we're going to skip ahead. Wait a minute. This is about his miracles, the miracles he did. Let's read some of this. All right. It so happened that while excavating and reinforcing that place, they discovered a most beautiful church, which was partly buried in ruins. Excavating as far as the floor of the temple, they found many holy icons, all decayed and crumbling. Yet the icon of Holy Phanourios was whole and entire. Indeed, it seemed as though it had been painted but that very day. And when this all venerable temple was uncovered, together with its sacred icons, the hierarch of that place, Nilus by name, a man of great sanctity and learning, came and read the inscription of the icon, which said, "The Holy Phanourios." The saint was depicted upon the icon as follows. He was shown as a young man, arrayed as a soldier, holding a cross in his right hand. At the upper part of the cross there was a lighted taper. Round about the perimeter of the icon were 12 scenes from the Holy One's martyrdom, which showed the saint to be of being examined before the magistrate. Then in the midst of the soldiers, who were beating him about the mouth with head and stones, then stretched out upon the ground while the soldiers flogged him, then stripped naked while they rent his flesh with iron hooks, then incarcerated in a dungeon, and again standing before the tyrant's tribunal, then being burned with candles, then being bound to a rack, then cast amidst wild beasts, then crushed with a great rock, then standing before idols holding burning coals in his hands, whilst a demon nearby wept and lamented. And finally he is shown standing erect in the midst of a fiery furnace, his hands as it were uplifted towards heaven. From these 12 scenes depicted upon the icon, the holy hierarch perceived that the saint was a martyr. Then straightway that good and pious man sent deputations to the rulers of that place, asking that they co-sign him that temple for restoration. But this they declined to do. Therefore the hierarch traveled to Constantinople alone and obtained a decree empowering him to rebuild the church. Thus it was restored to that state in which it can be seen even to this day outside the city. And it has become the source of many miracles, of which I shall relate one for the profit of many, that all who love and venerate the saint may rejoice. At the time the Isle of Crete had no orthodox hierarch, but a Latin bishop. What they mean is Catholic, okay? For it was ruled then by Venetians, who had shrewdly refused to permit an orthodox hierarch to be consecrated whenever one died. This they did with evil intent, thinking that with time they could convert the Orthodox to the Papist dogmas. If Orthodox men wished to obtain ordination, they had to go to Cytherea. It came to pass that they went forth from Crete 3 deacons, traveling to Cytherea to be ordained priests by the hierarchy there. And when this had been accomplished, they were returning to their own country. The Hagrians captured them at sea and brought them to Rhodes, where they were sold as slaves to other Hagrians. The newly consecrated priests lamented their misfortune day and night. But in Rhodes they heard tell of the great wonders brought by the great martyr Phanourios, and straightway they made fervent supplication to the saint, beseeching him with tears to deliver them from their bitter bondage. Listen to this. And this they did each separately, without knowing aught what of the others were doing, for they each had been sold to a different master. Now, in accordance with the providence of God, however, they were all three permitted by their masters to go and worship at the temple of the saint, as God, and guided by God, they came together and fell down before the sacred icon of the saint, watering the ground with streams of their tears, entreating him to deliver them out of the hands of the Hagrians. Then they departed, somewhat consoled, each to his own master, hoping they would obtain mercy, which in fact did come to pass. For the Holy One had compassion upon their tears, and hearkened upon the supplication. That night he appeared to the Hagrians, who were the masters of the captive priests, and commanded them to permit the servants of God to go and worship in his temple, lest he bring about dreadful destruction upon them. But the Hagrians, thinking the matter sorcery, loaded them with chains and made their torments more onerous. Then the great martyr Phanourios went to them that night and brought them forth from their bonds and encouraged them, saying the following day he would by all means free them. He then appeared to the Hagrians, reproaching them with severity, and said, If by tomorrow ye have not set your servants at liberty, ye shall behold the power of God. Thus saying, the Holy One vanished. And oh, the wonder! As many as inhabited those houses all arose, blind and paralyzed, tormented with the most dreadful pains, the least with the greatest. But though bedridden, with the help of their kinfolk, they considered what to do, and finally decided to send for the captives. When the three wretched priests were come, they inquired of them, they were able to heal them. And they answered, We shall beseech God, let his will be done. But the saint appeared again to the Hagrians on the third night, and said to them, If ye do not send my house letters of manumission, oh, glory, 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 letters of manumission for the priests, ye shall neither have health nor the light of sight which ye desire. And when they had again conferred with their kinfolk and friends, each one composed a letter of emancipation for his own slave, which were left before the icon of the saint. And oh, the wonder! Even before the messengers sent to the temple returned, those who before were blind and paralyzed were healed. And marveling, they set the priests free and dispatched them to their homelands amicably. The priests, though, had a copy of the icon of Saint Phanourios painted, and took it with them to their own country. And each year the memory of the Holy One is piously celebrated amongst them. But the prayers of the martyr, may Christ have mercy upon us. Lord have mercy. Y'all heard that right? Y'all heard that right? Okay, this is important. About prayers to the saint for his mother. There is a tradition concerning him and his mother, who was a harlot and a great sinner. His love for his mother caused him to pray for her incessantly. At the time of his martyric death by stoning, he could not even forget his mother, and with the boldness that is peculiar to athletes of Christ, okay, prayed, For the sake of these my sufferings, Lord, help all those who pray to thee for the salvation of Phanourios' sinful mother. Saint Phanourios in turn prays for the salvation and enlightenment of the heterodox relatives and friends. Many to this day pray for his mother and have her listed in their personal diptychs used for commemorations in divine liturgy, the mother of Saint Phanourios, since her name is not known. On the day of the saint, there is a tradition that the faithful bake a special bread, according to some accounts, give it to the poor as alms, and in the name of his mother and others, share it with at least 7 people. Okay, it's 9 pieces. All right, this is their idea of this, right? But let me show you what I think it is. Okay, this is their idea, the Fanor Pita, but we're going to call it Saint Phanourios pie. All right, so let's go back over here, and I'm going to get the recipe. Okay, so when I was looking up what was in the Phanour pizza, because the first thing I found out about this was I followed a few Orthodox people, and the guy was saying he lost his keys, and he asked Saint Phanourios to help him, and he found his keys, and so he baked the Phanour pizza. But of course, everything we do gotta have our own flavor on it because we're our own people. Okay, so this is the recipe I found. Now, they always suggest you have 9 ingredients, either 7 ingredients or 9 ingredients. Okay, this one has 9, and it's 2 eggs, 2 tablespoons of honey, a cup of flour, baking powder, tablespoon of baking powder, 1 cup of cornmeal, a half a cup of granulated sugar, a half a teaspoon of salt, a third of a cup of butter, and a whole cup of milk. This is what I would bake for Saint Phanourios. And so now you can understand the reason why I bring this up is because we're already doing our black eyed peas and greens on the first of the month, right? Now we understand and what is this for? The greens is for what? Prosperity, abundance, money, okay? The black eyed peas is what? Protection from the evil eye. Now we know what the cornbread in our culture is for. It's for Saint Phanourios' mother. It's our recognition of those who need to be saved, like who need to be converted into belief in the Creator. That's why we consume cornbread. This is in our actual culture. So, of course, in the Greek culture, they would make it something. In Greece, they would make it something from the Grecian culture, right? But we're in America and we're black. We're going to make it from our culture, which cornbread is in our culture. And especially since this recipe has literally 9 ingredients. I would change a few things. I would probably use more honey because I like honey. And like I said, you could add sweet potato, but you don't have to because you can leave it at 9 ingredients. Everybody knows how to do their own thing. I'm just pointing out that we have a dish that's made with 9 ingredients that literally does the same thing. And we should be embracing our culture and our history as a part of this worldwide culture that's going on, because Greece is not even really like the where our history as Americans is kept. It's really kept in Russia, Eastern Orthodoxy, not Greek Orthodoxy, because Greek Orthodoxy, like we read in that story, is most closely associated with Latin Orthodoxy. So I will personally be submitting prayers to Saint Phanourios for our things that have been lost. Things have been lost from us to be restored. The example that they gave of the freedom of those priests is really important, because if you follow my paperwork channel, you have to do manumission with emancipation. So that's a really specific story that very few people would really understand, but I get it because we did all of this research. So this how you know that. And I just recently purchased an icon of Saint George. It was weird because I bought 2 icons and I was like, I don't know why I have to buy these 2 icons, and I could have gotten Moses the Black, or there's some other ones that I really was interested in, but I ended up getting Daniel, which I totally understand that because I asked, where is our Daniel? So I got a Daniel icon, and St. George. And remember, I'm from Prince George County, who is named after St. George. So, and St. George is the trophy bearer. St. George is the trophy bearer. So when we do our 22-day feast, it's going to be a feast to St. George. So anyway, this is all part of our lore that we're creating now, our new history. And it's not new history, it's reclaiming the old parts of us. So we're asking St. Phanourios, let me go back to his picture so y'all can see it. We're asking St. Phanourios to literally intercede on behalf of our people, and in his honor and in honor of his mother, we will break the Saint Phanourios pie, which we call cornbread, and share it with our family and friends in his honor and in the honor of his mother. And for all of those souls who need to be saved and need to be brought to the faith, the true faith, that they be brought in peace and love and harmony, because that's what we want. We don't want people to have to suffer in order to be brought to the faith. Those 3 priests, they were going to be ordained. They were going to get the, like Thecla, get the orders that they could serve at, the Creator for a group of people. And they were intercepted in that and sold into slavery. And it feels like that's what happened, to our people. We were intercepted and sold into slavery, into this weird, belief system by these people. And so we pray that Saint Phanourios intercedes for us, and the same thing he did to those who had falsely, illegally bought and sold those priests, he will do the same thing to the people who illegally bought and sold us. And if they won't give us our manumission documents and our emancipation documents, honor them. It's not they have to give them to us. We issued our own documents because they don't have any power over us, but they need to honor them. They need to honor our manumission. They need to honor our emancipation. And so if they won't honor our emancipation and our manumission and our restitutions, that Saint Phanourios intercedes on our behalf so that they can have the opportunity to repent and learn the lesson and come to Christ. Because the whole idea is these people don't have to leave if they turn to the Creator. They can't stay here if they won't turn to the Creator, though. We can't have people on our land that does not believe in our Creator. But if they repent and they turn to the Creator, they're free to worship the Creator in spirit and truth. What they're not free to do is worship their gods, their idols, and their demons in spirit and in truth. We don't allow that on our land. Our land won't allow that. And so we're requesting Saint Phanourios intercede on our behalf. And every time, the first of the month, when we do our black eyed peas and our greens, now we also have to do our Saint Phanourios pie, our cornbread, in memory and in prayer for his mother, who was a sinner, much like our ancient grandmothers and ancient grandfathers were. So shalom, peace and blessings, and we'll see you in the next video.